Biofriendly Podcast. It's the Biofriendly Podcast.
So on the podcast, you guys are separated by a tree.
Exactly.
I love it.
This is what you're witnessing is the first time for us to be back again after the last 3 months of doing the show, only, remote Zoom.
Right.
But this time around, we're back in the office, but we got to respect the 6 feet. And what better way to respect the 6 feet than to put 2 trees?
Yes.
So we're blocking we're blocking ourselves from each other with trees.
Exactly.
Yes.
To help ourselves
Yes.
and the environment.
I love it. I love it. It's very clever, brothers.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, indeed.
Well, welcome to the Biofriendly Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
It is an absolute honor. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jahdai Pickett. For those of you who do not know, Jahdai is an Instagram influencer and I think up-and-coming star and celebrity. Got a whole thing going. Jahdai, we met Jahdai at a festival, right? It was like a Flappers comedy festival where we had our shorts that were put up in this little show that we all did together.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
And man, since then we've all been making films and projects, and it's been nice. We kind of grew up together a little bit. To some
That's
degree,
crazy. I got second place. I lost to you guys, man. Me and my buddy Chinadu, man. I think we had something good. I guess it was good because we got second place.
It was great. It was hilarious. It was wonderful.
Man.
It cracked us up.
To be fair, we had a whole. We had a huge team even back then,
Right.
working on it. So I feel like we had a little unfair advantage on
But
that
you
one.
guys, at that point, we both looked at it like, man, these guys. If someone was going to beat us, it would be these guys, the good cops, because you guys had a whole show.
Yeah.
You guys had a whole show, and I was so impressed. The winning was cool. It would have been great, but the fact that I got to meet you guys, and you guys are real life people. You guys are super cool, super nice guys, down to earth, and you guys had produced such a great show. I was impressed with that. That was a great experience.
Well, that is mutual. All of those feelings were completely mutual then, and remain so. In fact, now I just can't. I can't believe how much you've blown up. I'm so happy and excited for you and how it's all coming together. Actually, while we got you, before we get going, tell us how's it going? With I've heard you have a new app and everything.
Man, it's going well. It's going very good, man. I'm glad to finally get to this point. I'm sure you guys understand that uphill battle of trying to create and building a fan base and having people outside of your friends and family that actually love what you do. It took me a while to get there, but now I feel like I'm there now. So where people who don't know me, who don't have anything invested in me, actually like my content. So that's the most gratifying that I get that response from people that people from all walks of life who don't know me who actually like my content. So it's a great feeling, man.
Yeah. That is the best feeling when it goes from just being mom and dad, brother,
Right.
college roommate saying that you're amazing and you're talented and you're like, I love you and I'm so glad you're in my corner, but I wouldn't give to just have a complete stranger
stop you on the street.
Really like my stuff.
Exactly. A complete stranger sit here and just love your stuff.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's coworker, my girlfriend's boss likes my stuff. And,
wow.
And she just got the job, right?
Oh,
she got the
wow.
job maybe like 4 months ago. And her boss follows me since before she ever got the job. He didn't even know who she was.
That's
wow.
And so she was like, I don't know how the conversation came up, but he found out that she was my girlfriend. And he like, Bigg Jah? You know him? I'm his biggest fan. I was like, what? That's crazy.
Awesome.
So
that's fantastic.
Those are very comfortable and sometimes uncomfortable experiences when you come across somebody who they might they'll quote a line in one of your episodes and you don't know what they're talking about. Like, hey man, you're like, who is this guy? But they're just a person that likes your content.
So you can hear somebody's already trying to call in. They're already so please hold your calls. We're not accepting calls for Jahdai right now.
It's been so long. We've been doing this remotely for so long that that we forgot that there's phones that we
That
sometimes
just
have to
ring.
unplug in our office. So we now that we're here, you're going to hear the phone call randomly ring, and then Jacob and our favorite joke is that we say, "Please don't call in yet."
Yeah, no,
or we'll say call now,
call.
even
Yeah.
though there's no actual active
Yeah.
phones. But
Yeah.
that's
Right.
So-
That's funny.
Well, before we get into what he was talking about, I wanted to say for the people who know our content, you would recognize Jahdai from Good Cop Season 2.
Yes, sir.
He was the freshman. He was a freshman,
freshman.
bully for our old boy fight scene. Which is a classic scene, which that's the finale, isn't it? That's
that was
the finale.
finale.
Yep.
Which he was in that, and then also he was in House Harker. As
House
one of the
Harker.
deputies,
Yes,
and
indeed.
really, really funny
I mean,
performance in both of those projects.
But okay, so more specifically, I think that the audience should know for those fans of House Harker that so that scene at the end, there's a little cut scene. If you make it to the end of the movie, at the very end, there's a little scene with Cecil and Jahdai where they're out there talking. They're out alone in the middle of nowhere near all the death and all the gore and all the destruction.
Yeah.
And we knew we wanted a joke, but we didn't know how to deliver the joke the right way. We wanted to have that joke that it's the opposite of when normally in the horror movies, it's always that the black guy dies first.
Right.
So we're like, okay, so in this movie, we want to make sure that some of the only people who survive are of course, our black deputies. They have to survive.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but then we wanted it to punch up that joke at the end, and Jahdai came with that scene at the end, which I think. Well, when you
man.
see it, you'll see it was so brilliant. It was so perfect.
That
And
was-
thank
that
you
was
for
fun.
giving us that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was great.
normally we'd be dead already. We would the
Yeah.
first 10 minutes of the movie will be me and Cecil will be coming through like the house. We're like, I think we heard some noises up here, and next we're getting ate by vampires.
Totally.
Exactly.
And we knew when we made this movie, we were like, we're not doing that. We got to, because so many times in the film, as people who've seen it know, we try to take all the tropes, all the cliches, and always
Right.
flip them. We were just always
Right.
trying to take things that you expect would happen and go in a completely different direction. And that was a key one. We were like, we're going to have black deputies, but they're going to make it. They're going to survive, and it's going to
Yeah.
work out great for them in the end.
Right.
And you guys really did a fantastic job on that.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
I had a great time. And before we go further, I regret not being in Tumbleweed, and I was busy. You guys hit
Yeah?
me. When I first met you guys, you were like, "Hey, man, congratulations, bro. We voted for you, man. You guys won." And you were like, "Hey, man, I like your stuff, bro. You wrote that?" I said, "Yeah, I wrote it." "Oh, man, you're talented, bro." I said, "You guys are too, and we should keep in touch." And so, like, further projects, then we'll try to get you in something, man. I would love to work with you. That's what you guys were telling me.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, cool. That's good. These guys are nice, but they're nice. They just won."
They'll never
You
follow
guys
through.
called me for I
It's
believe
L.A.,
it.
right? You're
Right,
used to
of
hearing
course.
you're used to
We're
hearing
in
the
North
smoke.
Hollywood, Burbank area. So I'm like, yeah, fine, of course. You guys called me within I think maybe 4 or 5 months. You guys were shooting Tumbleweed or something like that, and you guys called, "Hey, man, we got a role for you." I was like, "Oh, snap! I'm in New York." You know what I'm saying? So it didn't work out that particular project. But then the Good Cops came before that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think before Tumbleweed.
Oh no, actually, Good Cops was after, because we shot. Even though Tumbleweed came out later, we actually shot it beforehand, and then
Right.
You came back.
Warner bought the
Yes.
show,
Yeah.
and then they said, you wait on Tumbleweed, finish this, and we
Yes.
could at the time, so we did, and so we ended up filming them both and then releasing them both.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
And you guys actually did what you said you would do. You guys tried to incorporate me and involve me in all your projects, man. I appreciate that. And then when you guys made the big movie,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hey, job, man. You're free. You got a
Yeah.
character. Yeah, that was dope, man. So
awesome.
I love you guys for that, man. You guys are very good guys, man. Not just for that, but just in general.
Awesome.
you.
We
We love
love
you
you
too,
too,
Families and
man.
whatnot.
It's
You guys are dope dudes.
completely mutual. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's
Yes, sir.
it's terrific. No, I do again before, and at some point we are going to have to talk about sustainability, Jacob. But,
I guess.
I don't want to yet.
Okay, I don't want to yet. What I love is every time I turn to my right, I have to look through trees.
Through trees. I look over like,
I'm like,
he's
The
not
rainforest.
yeah.
Right.
No, but I would love for people to check out first you're on YouTube, you're on Instagram, and now you have an app, right? The Bigg Jah app.
Facebook
is
as
it?
well. I'm on
and
Facebook as well.
So how can you just let people know how to find you, and then I'm going to brag about how great you are after you.
Man, you're wild. All platforms, basically, from Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, is Bigg Jah.
Right.
BIGGJAH. 2 G's. So BIGGJAH. And you can find me on Instagram, YouTube,
Find you everywhere.
Facebook, and Twitter. Yep.
And
Yes,
when did you
sir.
launch the app? I mean, I
I
watch
launched
your
the app-
stuff, so I'll see you talking about it, but I don't remember the exact date.
I launched the app last month.
Okay.
So we've had it for a while. I think I was because of one of the perks for subscribing to the app is getting to see my content ahead of time,
Oh, cool. Okay.
exclusively on the app before I put it on YouTube and Facebook. So if you want to see it, if I drop it Tuesday, it won't be on the app until a week at least later.
Okay.
You know, I mean not the app, but on YouTube or Facebook. So
okay, on the
that's
rest of
when.
the platforms.
Sure.
Yeah. So before that, then COVID hit. So.
Oh man.
We had to put a pause on it because I wasn't shooting. I wasn't shooting anything.
Right.
We were locked down, and I don't think you guys know this, man. I actually was tested positive for COVID-19, man.
What?
You did not.
I was in
No.
bad shape, bro. I was in
How did
March
it go?
12th. How did it go?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're with us, so thank God. But I mean, how did? Yeah.
But you know what? It was terrible. It's definitely the worst situation I've ever been in. But I mean, I'm blessed and I feel good. Now I feel great now. 100%
Yeah.
bounced back. I've been to the hospital since then. Since my quarantine time, I had to lay low. I'm 100% cured of it. I'm cured. I don't have it anymore. However, it was definitely it took me a while to bounce back. I was down for about a month.
Yeah, for sure.
March 11th and 12th was when I started feeling symptoms. I didn't know what it was initially. I thought it was just
Sure.
am I catching a cold? 'Cause I planned on my buddy was performing in a play on the 13th of March. So I was going to fly out to New York the March 13th, and I felt so bad. And then that's when they were saying that people was just probably locked down, put themselves away in the house and stay low.
Yeah.
So I canceled my flight. I didn't go. On top of that, I just wasn't feeling good.
Sure.
Yeah,
You're
and
officially
then,
our first guest that has had it.
Yeah?
And we haven't had
really?
yet. Yeah, we've yet to
Yeah.
have anybody who's actually had it. So
I did a whole I was on my manager's podcast in March actually, and I discussed it. So a lot of my supporters and subscribers didn't know, but I let everybody know. Yeah, I had it. It was definitely a tough time, but I never physically had those type of issues before. Like it attacked my kidneys, my lungs, of course. My feet. I had issues with my feet. They swelled up. Different things were happening, and it was just a bad situation. But like I said, I weathered the storm. I went to the hospital, the ER, and whatnot, and things got better for me. And now I'm back working out again, and I feel good. You know, of course, I'm still taking the precautions, washing my hands, wearing my mask when I'm in public.
Yeah.
But I have a gym. I have like a workout equipment in my backyard. So luckily, I'm able to go in the backyard, stay home, and still work out and whatnot. So
Great.
man. Any question you want to ask me, feel free. I'm back. I'm back.
Nice.
Better.
he's back.
He's back. He's back, baby.
That's great.
I'm glad you pulled through it. I'm sorry it was so hard for you to deal
man.
with that and everything else. But
Some people I know some people who my buddy got it. A few of my friends got it too. Not my close friends, but I know a comedian buddy of mine got it, and he was in worse shape than I was. He's a little older. And he already has diabetes and high blood pressure. He takes medicine for those, and so he was in the hospital for 2 weeks. He was on the ventilator, and he almost didn't make it. You know, he's back now. He's much better now. Another buddy of mine who lives in Long Beach, he got sick. He tested positive as well, and he got better. So all the guys that I know that got it, that tested positive, actually, were able to fight it off and be better. But I know some people who, my high school coach, God rest his soul, he passed away. My high school coach, he was 54. He passed of COVID, coronavirus.
Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that, man.
I think it's all good, man. His son was my teammate as well, and he's dealing with it, of course. The whole family is. But thank you, though, brother.
Yeah. No, I mean it's that's the thing, right? I mean, it's like there's so much confusion and division on the topic, but in the end, it's like you do what you can to stay safe, and you do what you can because it really does hit people. People get it, right? And you want to keep as many people safe as possible. And,
of course.
Keep this.
It's weird because if I would have never got it, it would be hard for me to grasp that reality. Like people could have this. Like a lot of people, like you're the only guy I know that had it. I'm like, yeah.
And that's a good thing. That means that maybe some of the stuff we did, some of all this was worth it. The fact that that's a good thing to hear, right? That you're the only
Yes,
person
of
I know who
course.
got it, right?
Of course.
So Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's a surprise. I had no idea. This is
Indeed. No worries,
podcast
man. My
surprise.
pleasure. And if I can, sometimes people, they see somebody online or at a podcast or in an interview discuss their experience where they might let them know, hey, this is serious.
Yeah.
So take the proper precautions and whatnot.
I think that's important for our listeners to hear,
Right.
for sure. That while we're in a place right now where things are gradually reopening and we're starting to feel a sense of normalcy returning, it's not time to just be careless. That we still have to always be cautious until we get one, a vaccine. Right. And two, that people feel like we really have flattened that curve and we're safe to fully reopen. So, I think that's important. Yeah.
Right. Yes, sir.
Nice. Well, okay. So I could spend all day talking about you and your content and the way that you present humor and how you do humor and what you've built, because I love it and it's wonderful. But we do actually, and thank you for coming on for this, we do actually have a topic we want to kind of get into. And I think if you'd be living under a rock, if you weren't aware of the protests that are going on now in our audience, or if you had not heard the name George Floyd, or if you didn't know what was happening across America and how things are changing, what's going on. And when it was happening, I mean, you were one of my first calls because I think that it's if I say the wrong thing or overstep, there's something that's very very important to me. I think Jake and I both we don't want to put our voice in the way, and we don't want to step in poo by accident because we've said the wrong thing. So please feel free at any point to cut us off or be like, hey, maybe you've got this wrong, or let me give you another perspective or whatever at any point. But we really want to share with our audience the point of view of someone who's kind of dealt with this in their life, the point of view of someone who understands what this is, what it's about, and to try to get some understanding of it from your point of view. And also to get some understanding of what we can do that would be helpful that doesn't get in the way, because there's so much noise right now on this topic. Yeah. And I don't think that there's quite enough listening. There really is a lot of talking, but not enough listening. And so wanted to know, I guess, first of all, how has this event affected you personally? How are you feeling about it, and how is it kind of unfolding for you?
Man, it's hard to start to know where to start with this, because it goes back way past before George Floyd, and even before the Eric Gardner and the Trayvon Martins, and it just goes back way before our time, my time, your time. It's just, it affects me in a way I didn't go out there and protest and in Hollywood or physically go out there for my own personal reasons, and but I understand why people are doing it. I understand. I think it's necessary. I think I don't know if the protesting in the streets is going to directly affect the future of this situation. This situation being like the system of white supremacy, and that's what it is. Of course, you hear the phrases "all Black Lives Matter." Then some people, typically non-black people, will say "all lives matter," which I agree with as well. A lot of times, we've been hearing this stuff online for years and even recently. So I might say things that might sound repetitive, but some people who knows, your listeners might not be aware of certain things. But all lives do matter. That's a fact. And Black Lives Matter, and that line, that statement stands alone because of the situation. Because it does say there's people of all colors dying and being killed everywhere. However, specifically, it's a situation in America, especially that people of color, myself, and people that look like me, that are being targeted. You know what I'm saying? And not. I don't think that. I'm sure there's white men and women being harassed by cops as well, but it's just not it's not as prevalent as it is for black people.
Not with the same frequency.
Absolutely not. So when people say all lives matter, it's true. But however, because of the context of this situation, I feel people are deflecting. It's almost trying to discredit the statement that we've made about Black Lives Matter. So I'm the kind of person that when I see stuff, I don't really watch the news as much, but I'm online all the time, and I see like videos and clips and interviews, and I get angry. I get angry, so I don't watch a lot of things. Like the George Floyd situation, when it first happened, I actually scrolled past it. I saw him laying on the ground with the cop's knee on his neck, and I scrolled past it. Not because I didn't care, not because that kind of stuff changes my day. And I wasn't. It's not about my day being great, and I saw it happening, but now we've gotten to the point where I can't just say just as a black man, but we've gotten almost desensitized to seeing it. There's a list of black men, especially over the last 2-3 years, 5 years, who've been murdered, by police officers, and those police officers haven't been some of them been fired, but none of them have been charged at all. And I understand as a cop, as a police officer, you have to do your job to protect and serve, and even subdue a perp or whatever. But we're literally watching men being body slammed, or tased, shot, choked to death, and they're unarmed.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a situation that I think is going to be bigger than just protesting. I think it's a situation where we have to go higher. We have to go higher to understanding how the root is. The root is, in my opinion, the system, the government, and the people of power who have the ability to, I don't know if the right word is to exonerate or to pardon these officers for for behaving this way.
Yeah.
We got to start with them. Of course, start with the police officers and having them governed by their own coworkers.
Right.
A lot of times where you're literally watching a man beat someone to death, and he's being watched by his coworkers. The other police officers around him or his partners are watching, as opposed to someone trying to tell him or making him stop.
Right.
And sometimes I know the police force has a brotherhood, to where no matter whether your partner is wrong, he's a cop, you're a cop, we're going to stick together.
Right.
And I understand that to a degree. To a degree. Not when they're breaking the law themselves. Not when they're abusing their authority. And that's what it boils down to. People think that just because a police officer becomes a police officer, that they're no longer human anymore. Like at this point, because they have a badge on and they went through the 800 hours of training, that they're a good person. They want the best for every single human being in the world. That's not the case, And a lot of officers aren't equipped for that. To handle a situation like they're supposed to. If cops are always saying, "Well, I feared for my life. He was a large man," and okay, so I shot him. If anything, I'm like, get beat up. If anything, because even in life, if I'm, no one wants to be. I'm not a street. I haven't had a fight in years. I'm a grown man. I shouldn't be fighting, and I haven't had one. But if I have to kill someone to subdue them. And that's basically what they're saying.
You're going a bit too far there.
Yeah.
Then maybe you shouldn't be doing this job.
Yes.
Maybe if he's too big, maybe you're too small. I mean, those, at the smallest level, that's kind of how we think of things. I can't say we. I speak for myself. It's frustrating. And it's bigger than just he's big and this guy's small. A lot of times, racism has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. And we'd be wrong. We'd be lying to ourselves if we thought that there's no cop in the world that is a descendant or a young man or woman that was raised in a racist household and has those views.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I mean, it's impossible because there's too many people, right? And it's just like someone's going to slip through the cracks. There's going to be something there.
Of course.
Yeah. But then maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that then the point that you're trying to make there is why is there not is there not the internal system to catch it, prevent it,
Right.
and then if it happens, to stop it, punish it, fix
Right.
it, and make it go away?
There's enough of this is happening too often, and nothing's being done about it for officers to feel any kind of pressure to not do it. You
Right.
know, because these last 15 officers killed these last 15 people, and they got off. So I'll probably do the same thing. You know,
Right.
It's. I don't want to be the only one talking here, but I mean, I know you guys are listening.
No,
but
honestly, our goal here is you know,
Is
you're
to shut
gonna
up.
have a dry mouth by the time you're done with this because the amount we're going to make you talk.
I don't mind talking. I don't mind talking about it.
No,
I don't want to over. If
look,
you guys,
I don't want to. Yeah, I don't like. We don't like to be terribly mean to people on the show or to pick someone out or do that. But I will get a little firm, I think, for a moment here to kind of explain why we want to listen. A lot of very new, very green, and often young activists right now who are trying to help the cause. I think, in my perspective, at times can get in the way because they're having a tendency to be a bit mean, a bit like you have to do it this way, you must do this, you must think, and then someone might put out, well, what if I do this or what, and then they get yelled at for no, you're doing it wrong. And those activists aren't necessarily people who are dealing with the problem. They're not, they're often white, often not.
I was gonna say specifically, we're talking about young white activists. People that their heart is in the right place. They're fired up. They really want to do something, but
and bless them for it.
Yeah.
But we want to hear from we want to hear from the source. We want to hear from people who are having the problem, because sometimes these young activists are a little bit getting in the way. I don't want to say they're getting in the way because they want to help and they are helping, but I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. If you were discussing police brutality and George Floyd and others, and for the next 4 or 5 months of this situation, a month ago to 3 more months, if you spent 4 months about this topic on your podcast, and every activist or person that you interviewed or discussed or had on your podcast was white,
right,
then it would be. It doesn't mean good information couldn't be transferred and whatnot.
Right.
You need to have someone of color on here, and most likely more than once either.
Yeah.
If we're discussing, because it didn't happen to me. I'm not George Floyd, but I could have been.
Yeah.
Have you had experiences that are obviously less severe, but where you've been?
Definitely. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, and I remember I was around during the riots. I was a young boy. I was about 11, 12 years old. I'm 38 now, but I remember I've literally been pulled over. I'm walking home from school with my friends. After school, there's hundreds of kids out walking across the street, going to the store, waiting at the bus stop or whatever. I'm walking with friends of mine, and there's cop cars on the side of the street with about 3 or 4 gangbangers. I know they're gangbangers based off their tattoos and their colors. As we're walking by, watching them subdue them, they're on their knees with their hands up. One of the cops tells me to come over here and grabs my backpack, takes my backpack off my back. I'm about 11 to 12 years old. At the time, of course, at 12 years old, I looked like I was 15. I was 6 feet at 12. I was a big kid. But he racially profiled me and made me get on my knees with the other kids, with the other older boys.
And you had nothing to do with it, right?
You weren't even in the same area. I mean, you were across the street.
Not at all. But because I was walking past them and I looked older than the kids I was with, they assumed that I was like trying to sneak away with. And so I've also been coming home and the police stopped me and asked me where I'm going and tell me to stop and put me on the curb. And I say where I'm going. I'm going home. Right. Let me see your ID. I'm 11 years old. I don't have an ID. I have a library card.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
And they didn't believe it. They didn't believe how old I was. And I've been stopped and put in police cars several times as a kid before I was the age of 15.
Really?
And, So I've experienced that. When I see the police car, I'll just run sometimes. As a kid growing up in that environment. So I've never been beaten. I've never been physically assaulted by a police officer in that way. or however who knows. And even now, last time I got pulled over by the police, I mean, fortunately, it wasn't a bad experience. It wasn't a negative experience, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a ticket. I was speeding. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So and that was it. It didn't seem racially charged. He didn't pull me over because I was a black man. Not to my knowledge. I was speeding. I was trying to get to an appointment, doctor's appointment, and I was speeding. But so he did give me a ticket, and that was that. So. Right. I don't believe that, you know, every white officer is a bad man, is a racist man. So at the same time, because of this situation, I won't go online and be like, no, all officers are bad. You can't pile them all in one group. I won't even waste my time saying that because no one's saying that every white officer is racist. We're not saying that at all. We're saying there's enough of them to where it's affecting us because they're killing us, you know.
Right. I'm glad you brought this up because when you said going online and about these buzzwords that are out there right now, because back to the activist point and to what you just said, which is I won't go online and say, hey, I'm not saying that or that's not, because our biggest problem right now is there's a huge miscommunication because these words and terms are getting thrown around on social media and people are always jumping to the extreme on this side and on this side, and they're not taking the time to educate themselves on what's being said. Back to the Black Lives Matter point, which is we're saying, you know, as a comic that I'll borrow from that I saw to illustrate the point, which is there's two houses, both equally important. One just happens to be on fire. So that's what we mean with Black Lives Matter. It's the house that's on fire needs attention. We're not saying the other one is not important, but that one is on fire. And so educating people is important. And the same with this, you know, the other day when I started seeing this, the defund the police. When people hear that, the other side, the ones that don't, the terms are being misunderstood and misheard, and they're not listening to one another. And we're getting into this debate as to one is trying to say we want to do it with all police, and the other one's saying we need, you know, more police or, you know, whatever, where the truth is if you pause and take a minute to read up and educate, you realize the idea being, what if police weren't tasked with so many things and we took a little bit of the money that's allocated for a police department and we spent it on mental health resources so they didn't have to deal with those situations, and we spent it on wild animals getting loose, you know, so that they didn't have to deal with that situation. That's what we're talking about. But people, like you said, if you go online and you start trying to say, I'm not saying that or I'm saying this, people are so quick to say, oh, you just want cops to be gone forever. You want to abolish the police force. And it's like, that's not what the conversation is about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And the ideal of police is not the problem. I don't think we should get rid of police. We should get rid of racism. And that's, and just being me growing up, of course, a lot of black people have, and maybe not just black people, but I think we have pessimist attitude and to think that it may never be abolished, or it may never be it might never be a world free of racism. Right. However, we need to change. We need to find a way to change the narrative that the people of power are the racist ones. Yes. You know,
even if sorry, go ahead. No, I would say even if it's just by looking the other way. Like I think people don't realize that the power in the negative power you can have by just ignoring something, by just letting something go, or just saying, well, I mean, I know Joe, and normally he's a good cop, and he probably had a bad day that day, and we're just going to let this one go. But you know, if Joe keeps doing this thing, you can't keep looking the other way. This doesn't. It doesn't work. So it's like it's, and maybe it's the strength behind that word racism and the connotation behind it and the history that word has that makes it so tough for people to accept that. Right.
That's another thing.
There's more.
That's another thing. Yeah. Being a black man, we say certain things, and I agree with damn everything we say when it comes to America and how it was built and the way it was built and what the Europeans did and when they came over here and I also consider the idea. It's hard for, when I say white people, I'm not speaking for every white person. I'm saying when I say white people, to live a life, you could be a good person, you have a good family, you're a good father, you're a good mother, you're a good husband, good wife, and you have a very positive attitude on life. You treat people all the same. You're still, if you're white, you still have that burden of, well, maybe not you, but the white person, the people, you know what I'm saying, that they have oppressed us for 400 years plus. A lot of people don't want to hear that, even though it's true.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to hear that. A lot of white people don't want to hear that. And it's true. So imagine hearing that your whole life. You know, people say, I don't want to keep hearing this. I was watching a video. I don't know if you ever seen it. It came out like a few days ago where there's a young white girl, like a teenager, and she was filming herself, but you could tell she was she was sneaking it, so her parents wouldn't realize that the conversation was being filmed, and she was talking to her mother and father. It started off with her father, and he was telling her to be quiet. They were arguing, and she was like, "No, I won't be quiet, Dad. You're being ignorant. You're sounding racist." He was saying that they're racist. He was saying like black people live in ghettos and they want to stay there. They don't want to do anything to get out of it. And she was like, "No, it's not like that, Dad. If you understand the history of this country, a lot of times there are black people who are in the situation because it was systematically put in place for them to be in that situation hundreds of years later." He was like, "No, there's so many black people who I'm not talking about. They pull themselves up from their bootstraps and they become something of themselves. And then you got the other black person who they just want to be animals and stuff like that." And she was like, "You're calling human beings animals." She's talking to her father, and the mother bets in. She was like, "Just be quiet. Listen to your dad. I won't listen to him. You guys are not being rational and you're not making sense." She was saying, "Mom, I was watching a protest on the news and you told me to turn it off." "Yes, because I'm tired of watching it." "You're tired of watching what?" "I'm tired of them complaining about how bad we white people are treating black people." I haven't treated anybody black wrong, but she's not understanding this. It's not. They take it. Sometimes a lot of people, especially white people, take the statements white people are killing black people as a personal attack of themselves and their own households. So a lot of times, and so when they say all lives matter, they're neglecting. They're not really they're not paying attention to, or they're ignoring the fact that black people are under fire.
Yes.
And they either they don't know, or they don't know, or they do know but they don't care enough, or they're just tired of hearing that Black Lives Matter. Okay, yeah, well, all lives matter. We know all lives matter.
Right.
You know.
Right. It's
right. Like
stating the obvious.
If I was sitting here choking, right, and I needed help, in that moment, Jacob might say, "Noel's life matters," and come over and give me the Heimlich maneuver and then save me.
Yeah.
And then when I'm back, then I go back to all lives matter, which is broad, which is there. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's choking at the moment, literally?
Yeah.
Right?
Literally.
And that's I think the point is like we're just, you can almost say it's like a branch of the All Lives Matter movement that we're focusing on at the moment, right? Is Black Lives Matter. That is what that gets focused today. That gets focused right now. That's what we're talking about. And when you see that hashtag, when you see that phrase, one does not accept the other.
Right.
You can have both. You can have the fact that all lives matter and still have in that moment, but we're talking right now about Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Is that right?
As soon as someone says that, when any person that says, when I hear all black, if I say or hear someone say all Black Lives Matter, then someone respond. Even if they are black, some black people say it too. Believe it or not, all lives matter. It shows me that they are. If they are white, I might consider them a white supremacist. Yeah. You know, if they say that because like you said, if the same situation is two houses right next to each other, one's on fire, and then the neighbors across the street on a whole another house, they'll look at those two houses and one's on fire, and if someone say, "Hey, that house is on fire," or "That house, we need to pay attention to that house because it's on fire."
Yeah.
And then someone says, "Oh, I know it's on fire, but all houses matter. We got to pay attention to both houses."
Yeah.
That to me tells me that you don't care about that house that's being on fire.
Exactly.
That's what it means. So
you don't care about putting out the fire.
Yeah.
right? Which means someone's going to lose a
Right.
house.
Yeah, and so our goal,
Right.
you know, this being an educational podcast, is that some people have to be led into these issues in a gradual way because their defense mechanisms are up. And like that recording you talked about with that daughter talking to her parents, that is an ingrained thought in those parents' mind that has been there since they were children. And then their parents were children. And it's just been sowed. That seed has been sowed from generation to generation. You know, it reminds me of, even though this is a 20-plus-year-old film, American History X, which, you know, it shows when you get all the way to the end, you see this small, tiny moment with Edward Norton and his father, and that seed being planted that then flourishes into this violent, hateful person.
Yeah.
And so the thing that gives me hope is, you know, I've got kids and Noel has kids, and when we tell them about the protests and they hear what's going on, they are baffled. My children are baffled at the idea that anybody would have a problem with anybody's color of skin and that this is an issue. And our hope is that the generations that are raising children now are constantly making sure that those racist seeds from those white ancestors that go back hundreds of years are dying and wilting and falling away, and that we can build a future where people can say Black Lives Matter and they immediately go, of course, because that's what we're focusing on right now, and not putting those guards up that they were taught to put up for decade after decade after decade. And that's really why we're so glad that you came on the show, because your experience is what we want to share and we want to educate on the Biofriendly Podcast. So,
Of course. Thank you for having me, man.
yeah.
I think it's important, and I'm glad you guys reached out. And we've always discussed film and entertainment. So when Noel hit me and called me and said, "This is what he wanted to talk about on the podcast," I was, thank you, man. Thank you, not just thank you for having me, but because of this topic, and this is what you wanted to talk about. You know, a lot of people don't want to talk about this, especially people that are not of color. They don't want to talk about it at all. And the fact that you guys do, and I've always knew you guys are good guys, man. Before all this, you know, I thank you for it, man, and it's definitely refreshing, you know, and I just think it's a dope situation, man. I love this.
Thank you for helping us. Thank you for coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate, honestly, the way you handled it, the way you talked about it. To kind of continue the point a little bit that Jacob made, it's pretty phenomenal that you brought up some understanding and some. I mean, I had not thought about honestly the white perspective on years of hearing about this and like, because you know you do try to separate it, I suppose, to some degree. When you hear the word racism, it's like, well, no, that's not me. Like, you immediately want to say, no, not me, right? So then what does that mean over how many years, over how many generations of no, you know, well, no, and what? It's profound, your awareness of the fact that people are so tired of the word and afraid of the word, they don't even want to look at it. And because they don't want to look at it, they're not confronting a problem that still exists. And what an interesting challenge that is. And I think I encourage our listeners to kind of focus in on that a little bit, that we never want to browbeat on the show. We don't want to tell anybody you're wrong. We don't want to tell anybody that you're terrible, you're awful, or you're racist or anything like that. That's not really what we try to do. But if you look at it from the point of view of like, look, we get it. We get it. There nobody wants to be called this. Nobody wants to be associated with this. Nobody wants to be responsible for causing this or creating this. So okay. So we get that you don't want to be and that you are a good person. We agree you're a good person. So if you're a good person and if you have this in your heart, take a moment, step back and say, all right, let's listen to this one more time and try to see if I can look at this with new eyes and with a fresh perspective. And let's see if there's anything, any even little thing, because that's what we're about on the show. Is there any little thing that I can do to be helpful or be better? To maybe listen to my kid when they're saying that and maybe give them a chance to explain their perspective, what they're learning, what they're getting right now, and to maybe embrace at least some of that, and to try to take some of that, because, to Jacob's point, like, it's the less that we do to bring our crap into our kids' lives, the more clean our kids will be for the next generation and the next generation. And that can only be done if we acknowledge to some degree that this is something that needs to just be looked at until it's gone. Yeah. It needs to keep being looked at until it's gone. And no matter how much it hurts, and no matter how much you can feel you're not responsible for it, guess what? We live together. Yeah. We are. Jahdai is my friend. Yeah. We're friends. We live together. We work together. We are together. We're in this together. So despite what might be there, I do have responsibility because we're in this together. We are. Whether we like it or not, we are in this together. So let's see if we can make this better. Yeah. Don't turn away. Don't turn away. Yeah. Don't look away from the situation. That is the most minimal thing that we can ask you to do. Don't look away. Don't ignore it. Is that right, Jahdai? I mean, we're talking about here we are, two white dudes, and we're like, this is what you do. You know what? That was an idea, but Jahdai, does that sound like a good idea? No, this is in the black community. People say, I know other black men and women who like myself have white friends. Even white people in my family, like uncles and aunts who have married white people. Sure. And the question is, you have to look at your friends and how they feel about this whole situation. If I had a white friend that was like all lives matter, we'd probably have our friendship would deteriorate. Yeah. Or you at least have to have a very detailed discussion. Or you'd at least have to have a very detailed discussion. So you have to look at your friends, and sometimes even my buddy, he lives in Arizona, and he has coworkers that he's cool with. They have lunch together and stuff like that, and then a couple of them made some comments that made him look at the guy like, "You actually believe that?" I don't remember in detail what it was, but it was regarding Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, and they were kind of deflecting, and I don't like that. I don't necessarily think someone's a bad person. However, I don't think you're a good person if you feel like you see anybody being harmed and think it's okay, Right. And so, and black people in general, I mean, it's over so many years, have been we're not the only people that die. We're not the only people that get killed, and every black person doesn't get killed by a white person. Sometimes it's a black person that kills a black person. We know that. So when people start saying stuff like, what about black on black crime? That to me is deflecting as well. Yeah. I don't understand. Yeah, that's saying, like, if I say, if Jacob says, no, hit me, and I say, I understand that, but Mike hit you too. Yeah. And he's your brother. Right. Yeah. Noel's just your friend, but Mike hit you. How come you're not upset about Yeah. I'm upset about both. Yeah. So just because I mentioned this situation, don't try to bring up another situation to justify why it might not be that big of a deal. Yeah, right. To minimize one, right? To say, it's not that big of a deal. Look, it happens all the time. It's like right. Yeah. No, so, yes, you guys are right when it comes. Yeah, I think looking away is just as bad as doing it yourself. Yeah. Like there was I'm gonna change the analogy a little bit. Sure. But I don't based off because of the podcast and who might be watching. But there was a question where Doc Rivers' son, Doc Rivers Jr., the basketball player, he was on the podcast. He was on the Zoom podcast like this with Van Lathan. I'm not sure if you guys know who that is. Yeah. Van Lathan is he's a personality. I think he used to work for TMZ, and I don't know exactly what to label him. I know he has a podcast, and he's a black man, and I would consider him pro-black and not anti anything else, but pro-black for sure. And he gave an analogy of Doc Rivers Jr. in the basketball. See, in the NBA, how many players are on your team? He said about 13 to 14 players are on the professional basketball team. He said, okay, how about out of all 14 of those players, only one guy is I'm trying to think of this is something terrible. So one guy is doing
is stealing from the team, the company.
Okay. Sure.
All right, he's just stealing a lot of money from the company, but the other 13 players are not stealing, right? But they all 13 players know he's stealing from the company.
Right.
And it's hurting the company. It's hurting the franchise. And all 13 guys don't say anything. Now, then the powers that be, the superiors, the owners, find out that this guy is stealing, and they find out that the other 13 guys knew he was stealing for however many seasons, how many years. They're all in trouble. They're all going down,
right?
In my opinion. And I think in anyone's opinion, the analogy is a little different because the crime wasn't thieving; it was something else.
Right.
So think of something much worse than just stealing money from someone.
Right.
Think about what you can do to a human being. What's the worst thing you can do to a human being?
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So all 13 players knew about that.
Right.
About this for this one player on the team. The other 13 players weren't doing it; they weren't committing the crime, but them knowing what was going on and allowing it to continue going on because of their silence, they're just as bad. They're just as guilty.
Agreed.
In my opinion. So
Because they could have ended it. They could have stopped it. They could have
prevented it. If they know it's wrong, you're not saying, well, I didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not racist. But but what are you doing to stop it?
Yeah.
And I'm not sitting there saying, I'm going back to what we said earlier about, I wouldn't tell someone, you got to do this, you got to do that, or else you're nothing. No, but there's something. You should be doing something.
Right.
Yeah.
You should discuss it, talk about it amongst your own circles,
right.
And try to come out. How can we help? How can we do something? I think it's more so if the powers that be, the system of white supremacy, they all know people who are not racist in their family, and how maybe it has to find. We have to find a way for it to trickle up. I think it's going to be more than just black people protesting, black and brown people, even black, brown, and the white people protesting. It's going to be much bigger than that. It has to be people policing their own,
right?
Policing their own. Whoever is head of this white supremacy situation,
right?
It's people around them that have to get them out of it. That have to remove them from power.
To be those other players to say what you're doing is wrong, and we will no longer accept that. We will no longer accept that. Yeah.
And I'm not speaking to you in a nutshell. I'm saying, of course, not you guys, not you.
No, I get it. I get it.
But like, if you had opportunity, you can get to the racist guy before I could.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's actually an interesting point, right? And, let me know if this is something that you want, because we are trying to find, like, how can our listeners help, right? So I am I'm a white person. I was a white kid. I grew up. I know a lot of white people.
Right.
I probably have more white people in my Rolodex than I would guess you do. Right?
Yes.
So because of that, my capacity to influence or make a change amongst the white community is probably greater than yours.
Yes.
And I can therefore help. I can therefore make a difference by just having these conversations in a way that might be easier or safer for a white person to hear from a white person.
Right.
In order to make it clearer, to get the point across, right? Because I do think that there is a misunderstanding and a deflection on Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. That it isn't versus. It is Black Lives Matter right now. We're talking about this right now. This is the topic, right? So I think that might be a way that maybe someone like me could be more helpful. Someone, our audience, our listeners could be more helpful. It's like you know a lot of white people, and maybe they say something that you hear now, and you've listened to this podcast, you hear like that actually that hurts, and you now know why it hurts. You've been listening to the reasons why it hurts. Yeah. You have an opportunity to now explain this point. You have an opportunity to explain what Black Lives Matter actually is, right?
Right.
I mean, is that,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it should be conversations. If I walked into a room, if I was a fly on the wall and I heard a room full of 20 white men and women discussing Black Lives Matter, and that's a good thing.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So
And I did say the word Rolodex, by the way. I actually did drop Rolodex in the 21st century.
That did make you sound like a
upset.
very old man.
It's all good, but in your phone.
Yeah.
In your phone.
For you
it's
youngins.
true. And sometimes, just let me touch on that for a minute. Even me growing up in the neighborhood that I grew up in, I grew up where if I saw a white person, he or she was probably my teacher.
Right.
And it probably was a substitute teacher.
Wow.
You know, I had a substitute teacher named Mr. Black. He was a white guy named Mr. Black.
Okay.
And I was like in the fifth grade. Yeah. But I moved from Los Angeles, California to San Diego, which is a more interracial city. The community is a little more is whites, Mexicans, Filipinos, blacks, Samoans, and that was the school I went to. But I went from a predominantly black school in a black neighborhood to a predominantly Mexican and Filipino neighborhood where even the white kids at my school were like the minority, you know. But they were still mixed in. Like I have friends, and now in high school I have a well-rounded group of friends of different colors, different nationalities, different ethnicities, and different cultures and everything. You know, so moving. But if I would have just grown up in LA, I have friends and family members who don't have any white friends. And it's not because they have a problem with white people necessarily. It's that they don't have them in the neighborhoods. And they didn't. And then I went off to school. And my roommate is white. And his family comes to visit. My family comes to visit. Now we're sitting there having family time at my college with my white friend and his family and my black family. You know. So I just sometimes it boils down to a white person growing up with no white friends, a white person growing up with he or she might not have anybody that comes in contact with them until they go to work and they have a black coworker.
Right.
I think it's just more as an adult taking it upon yourself to educate yourself on other people, other culture. That goes for black people with white people and Asian people and Mexican, and white people with black people, Asian people, Mexican, and so far on. You can't help, like you said, you've been white your whole life. You can't help who you went to school with or grew up with or lived next door to if you grew up in a neighborhood that's predominantly white. Right. You know. Yeah. So I think at a certain time, as you mature as a young man or a young woman, that you realize, okay, the world is bigger than just my neighborhood.
Right.
Let me try to learn about that. Yeah. And I think a lot of times people are not willing to accept that they need to learn about another culture. Right. You know, and I feel like if more people learned about another culture and learned about people, they would realize that black people are any other race, and specifically black people because of the context and the conversation we're having, are no different from them. Right. You know, of course, we might talk different, might move a little different, and that's because that's background. That's just how we grew up. That's how you grew up. So, I feel like a lot of people are stuck in their ways. Yeah. You know, even I think it's so much easy. I think it's easy to be racist. I think that's a cop out. I think it's why don't you take the time. Yeah. Take the time to pay attention to someone else's culture, and don't necessarily listen. This, to me, I feel like it's just common sense.
Yeah,
yeah. Just treat people is treat people the way you want to be treated. Right. And of course, that's in the Bible. Of course, do unto others as you want done unto you. But let's just take the Bible out of it. If we just talk about just common sense. Yeah. Right. If you wake up in the morning and walk down the street, and this person slaps you in the face, no matter what race he is or she is. And then the next morning, the same thing happens. The next morning, the same thing happens. Eventually, you're going to end up fighting this person because you want them to stop hitting you. Right. You know. So however, if you get to a point where he or she doesn't hit you at all, you don't hit them at all. I'm not going to hit you or talk to you bad because I don't want you doing the same thing to me. Right. I'll not only do unto others as you want done unto you. You do unto others as you want done to the person that you love. Right. Yeah. Your child, your mother, your sister. I don't want anyone hitting my sister, so therefore I'm not going to hit you because I'm not in fear that you hit me back, but you might go and hit my sister. Right. You know, so I think that's common sense, man.
It is. And you can even take that a step further and say if you do better unto others than you would have them do to you. Yeah. Then suddenly you have not only taken away that that opportunity for danger, but you've actually put a positive thing into someone else's life. And think about the difference in your day if you have people saying, "Hi there, how you doing?" Being nice, being kind.
Right.
You know, helping you with this, doing this. All those little things happening to you over a day add up to a great day. So you get home and you're a nicer person to the people around you.
Very true.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I do things because I like doing it, not because, well, he's nice to me, so I guess I'll be nice to him.
Right.
I'm nice to you because I like being nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Me personally. It makes me feel good.
Right.
Yeah.
I know I'm a big black guy, but I've always been this guy. I've always been the guy that I enjoy being nice to whoever, no matter what you look like, no matter, you know, and even with that being said, I do know also me being a black man and the lifestyle, the hardship that we've had since we got here, you know, I still have love in my heart. And that's what it boils down to, in my opinion, is what kind of person are you that you just want that this other human being, I know we're different, we have different skin tones, but if you cut us, we all bleed the same. We all have a heartbeat, you know. I could imagine a person of any intellect not thinking that we don't have heartbeats and brains, you know.
Right.
So people think, you guys are monkeys, you guys are such and such. Like, do you really believe that?
Yeah.
That's not even, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
We have 10 fingers, brother, just like you.
Yeah.
You know, we have ears, noses. Our mine might be a little bigger, but I mean, it's still a nose, just like you. So it boils down to that for me, man. And yeah, bro, it's just hopefully, maybe not in our lifetime, but in our grandchildren's lifetime, that this thing would be erased, eradicated, or something, rectified, or whatever you want to call it. It's going to take some time. It's more than this. It's not going to stop. We're not going to have 5,000 people down in the street protesting, and tomorrow with no more racism. You know, I understand why the protests is going on, and I'm all for it. You know, I think we all and different people are going to find different ways to fight this fight. You know, I think we all should do something though.
Yeah.
That's great. And I think we found a couple of productive actions for people in this podcast, and I really thank you for helping us discover that and see. I mean, because I think that's it's funny, but that is a simple basic thing that everybody who's listening to this show who knows a lot of white people, or frankly a lot of any people, can do, is to just be kinder and start having these conversations in a way that you think your friend can handle, right? And to just spread it, to spread this love, this understing, this care, you know, like the coronavirus, but you know, less mean,
but with your heart.
With your heart.
If you are any person of color or or not, if you do your part, help us. Help yourself, of course, but like you said, we are under fire right now, and you need anybody. You should be trying to help us. It's equivalent. If I put it in sport terms, I put a lot of things in sport analogies, and I'm sure you guys played sports at some point in time in your lives. Have you ever had like the gassers or like sprints where the whole team is doing it, and there's always a couple guys that are a little less in shape or a little less able to finish strong. And 80% of the team is done. They're done with the gassers or with the laps or with the run, and there's like 4 to 5 of the guys. So that'd probably be less. That'd be less than 20%. But you get what I'm saying. The ratio.
Yeah.
And you always see those guys who are already done. They get up and run back and help the other guys finish strong.
Yeah.
And you've already done your race. Right. And I think that's what this is. All lives matter, of course, but. The black folks, black lives are the ones further back. So even though we all a team, but go back and help. That's what you should do. Go back and help. Even though you're over here done, you've done with your race, you've completed that. But there's still, if you realize, if you are not blind and deaf, and you realize that black people have an unfair advantage, disadvantage. Excuse me, have a disadvantage. And if you care about people, the people who have the unfair, who have the disadvantage, you should go back and help us finish strong. And that means just supporting the cause.
That's a terrific analogy for another phrase that a lot of white people shy away from and get afraid of, which is white privilege, right? Yeah. And I think that the conversation I have, and please, again, correct me if I've got this wrong, right? No. But I think that the misunderstanding on white privilege is that it's not that that it's not that we're upset that you have that you got a head start or that these things are helping you. It's that there needs to be a recognition that it should be that way for, like, it shouldn't be called white privilege. It should just be called privilege. It should just be birth, right? Like everybody should have the same starting point, like the same thing.
Right.
And it's not, no one's mad at you because you have that. We're all, it's whatever. It's like it happens. But if you're there and you have an opportunity to go back and run that BB with the person, or grab that rope and help the person up the hill to get to that point so that you can go together now and climb the rest of the battle of life, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you be helpful, right? I mean, it's like we're all born in different situations and in different, in different circumstances, and there's just an inordinate amount of people who happen to be black who are born in a situation that's more difficult. And so help.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Help and recognize because and with that being help is and of course there are a lot of black activists who are well more knowledgeable and more versed in this conversation that can say this is how white people can help. So they're probably better equipped to explain how that can happen.
Right.
I think first and foremost is that white people should acknowledge that.
Right.
That there is white privilege. And then hopefully there will be that not just because they acknowledge it, but because eventually over time, hopefully with help, of course, and everybody governing themselves and the people around them, governing them, white privilege will be nothing one day. It would just be, like you said, privilege, or everyone's on the even playing field. I don't want anything extra. I don't want a head start. I'm very competitive. If I lose to a white man, it's because he's more qualified than I am, not because he's a white man.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, that's at the end of the day, that's what it is.
I always think of this as the broader picture too, of the fact that we are all in this together, right? So why would you take a large portion of the people on Earth who could do the great things that could make this a better world and a better place for all of us, and not set them at the starting line, start at the same place? Because think of what we could get if we were all there together.
A part of that is just greed, and I think a lot of the racism is really rooted in greed, the opportunity to capitalize off wealth, and I think it's sometimes it's just for the white guy that's not financially stable, and him being racist, it's just him just hating the situation. I hate him hating black people, but there's a lot of people. It makes money to be racist.
Yeah,
right.
You know what I'm saying? It's if you can get the black man to do slave for us for slave free for 400 years out of saying it's what we're supposed to do because they're lesser than us.
Yeah.
And whether you believe it or not, that's what you're going for.
Right.
And you can get free labor for 400 years, or 300 something years. But I think that a lot of times it makes sense. Like, why not just let us all live together and all work for the same thing on the same playing field? Right. And you got white supremacy, but nah, we don't want that. We don't want to even fight. We want to tie your hand behind your back and then get into a boxing match.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And then take credit for winning.
And that's the thing. And that's why people, this goes back to that point again, where people don't want to look at it and they don't want to hear it because they're quote unquote tired of hearing it, because they're taking white privilege, that word, so personally. They're not looking at the grand scheme of things. They're not looking at white people as a whole. They're only thinking, well, not me. I grew up poor and I did this and this happened. But they're not looking at, in the United States specifically, the systemic racism. If you go back and you see the civil rights movement and you see all of my parents, your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and you see the journey of their time in America as opposed to my family's time in America. There was a long, long time where opportunities were not allowed, loans were not given, education was not given. So that is setting the playing field in a completely different trajectory. And are we working to correct it? Yes. But white people as a whole, need to stop turning away from the word white privilege and just go, it exists. It absolutely exists. That's the only way we can move forward. Is that
Right.
is that a fair assessment?
I agree.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And you don't have to feel bad if you are sitting at
Yeah.
home and you've had a great life and you've done well with what you got and you're making it happen. You're doing it good. It does not mean that you did not achieve those things. It does not mean that you did not work to make those things happen. It does not mean that you are less because this thing exists. It means that someone else didn't get to be there
Right.
because they had to work farther and work harder
Yeah,
and get there. And
that's-
that's
yeah,
all
very
it
true.
is.
And that's why
Yes, sir.
privilege. That's it.
Yes, indeed.
I think we solved it, guys. No, I'm just kidding.
We're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
I know.
That's a joke we have in this show.
Now,
that-
we need the world to be on the
Yeah,
same page
exactly.
as well.
So that's our
You
joke
know.
in the show is that whenever there's some like massive environmental problem that is nowhere close to being solved, we'll come up with some little thing that you can do.
Common
It's like,
ground.
good. Now
Common
we've solved that
understanding.
problem.
Oh, it's done.
Oh, we did it. We healed the
Just
world.
bottle it up.
Yeah.
And feed it to everybody else.
Yeah.
We got
No.
the solution. It's
But-
this is good. This is.
Well, it's
this
good. I
is
mean, I
good.
hope it at least gives some small things and some understanding of what our audience can do to help. And that's really what we're all about.
Yeah.
Right.
And thank you so much for coming here and for talking about this and for educating us
Man.
on this and all of our audience and everyone on
Yes, sir. Yes,
a
sir.
deeper perspective, a deeper understanding. And my love for you grows every minute, Jahdai.
Thank you, brother.
You're incredible.
As
Same here.
mine does for you guys, man.
Yeah.
You guys
Absolutely,
been
man.
good. You guys been good. They've been dope since day one, man. I loved your energy. I love everything about you guys. You guys are dope, and I love this. This is the last time we spoke. It was all about film. Now you guys are changing the world. You know what I'm saying? Biofriendly. I love it. This is dope.
Thank you. Yeah, we're
Thanks,
trying.
Jahdai.
We're trying to do our part as best we can.
Yeah.
Yes,
Try to-
indeed.
Try to help out where we can, whenever we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You
Well,
guys are doing that.
Thanks
man.
for coming
That's
on the
dope.
podcast. Do we do the tags or do we just call it there?
I think we call it. I think
agree.
we say. I think that now that you've gotten this whole thing, you've been given this information. I think you all deserve a laugh, and you all deserve a moment to really appreciate genuinely brilliant humor. And really great relationship humor, and even great, just one thing I love about your show in particular is that you take the stereotypes and you'll grab them, hold them, and then explode them in the funniest ways possible. And,
Appreciate it, yeah.
And I think that people would really get a kick out of checking you out and checking out what you're up to. And so
Thank
look
you,
for
man.
Bigg Jah on everything, any platform, anywhere, and you will not only will you laugh, you'll learn something and have a really good time doing it. So,
Yeah.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, for
Thank
sure.
you, man. Love you guys, man.
Love you too, man. Thanks for coming on the
Yes, indeed.
Biofriendly Podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Next time, brother. Salute. Yes, indeed.
for
Peace.
sure.
Bye.
Yeah.
It's the Biofriendly Podcast. It's the Biofriendly Podcast.